Hello, my lovely anatomists and physiologists. Welcome back. We are ready to talk about the male body gonad, which is called the testis, which is singular, or testes. This is a paired gland, so there are two. We do have a nice diagram from our OpenStax textbook showing us the kind of oval shaped structure of the testis. We see that inside the testis, it's sort of divided up into lobes. And inside each lobe, we have a whole bunch of tiny tubes. And we will call these tubes the seminiferous tubules. And this is actually going to be the location of what's called spermatogenesis, which we'll talk more on in the next video. So this is actually going to be sort of our starting point for where sperm production is happening. From there, we'll see the sperm move into what's called a straight tube, and the straight tube leads us to a structure called the rete testis. And that's actually what I would emphasize as the next part of our pathway of the sperm. So I'd actually go from the seminiferous tubules, kind of bypassing the straight tube, and then focusing in on the rete testis. Exiting the testis, you have what's described as the efferent ductule. And then from the efferent ductule, we see that that leads directly to the epididymis. And this is where our body of knowledge picks up. So we talked about the epididymis last time as being the location for like final maturation of sperm and also storage of sperm until emission. Emission is talking about moving that sperm into either the vas deferens or the ductus deferens. And we see that then exiting the scrotum and moving into the pelvic cavity. Notice in this diagram, we do see that cremaster muscle labeled here as surrounding this outer portion of the scrotum. And remember, that's important in contracting in order to elevate the testes to bring them closer to the pelvic cavity when environment is cold, or relaxing to allow the testes to hang further away from the pelvic cavity when the environment is warm. When we talk about the testes, we are going to see there are several important cells that are in the mix here. So we have a cell that's called the Sertoli cell, or I'm more used to calling it the nurse cell. So that's how I will primarily refer to it in our materials. The nurse cell is going to promote sperm production. We're going to see that it releases several hormones. So we have one that's called androgen binding protein, which we're going to talk more about this one in the future. So that's ABP for short. We're going to see production of the hormone called inhibin, which we're going to talk about more in the future. It's part of the negative feedback mechanism controlling the whole reproductive system. And we see that the nurse cell is also important in creating what's called the blood testis barrier. And this should sort of sound familiar because we had a blood-brain barrier that we talked about earlier in the course. In the case of the blood testis barrier, it's the same idea. We're protecting what has access to the sperm cell, right? Because the sperm cell is going to contribute genetic information to the next generation, and we want to be very protective of that. So we'll see the blood testis barrier is formed by the nurse cell, and it's going to keep blood-borne substances from reaching our spermatogonia. Okay. So here I'm going to go ahead and highlight our cell types so we can pay attention and really see them standing out. Now, the way I understand this is actually inside of the nurse cell, we have our next cell, which is the spermatogonia. So let's highlight that one. So I understand that this is located inside the nurse cell. And this is our stem cell to make sperm. So when we had our video on meiosis, we said you have a starting cell is either spermatogonia or oogonia, depending on whether you're in the testes or the ovary. We're going to see the process of spermatogenesis in our next video. So this is the stem cell that's initiating that process to actually make our sperm. So we'll go into a lot of detail on that in just a little bit. The other important cell type that we're going to see here is the interstitial cell. That's the name I'm more comfortable with, but you'll see it also listed as the Leydig cell. We're talking about the same type of cell here. The interstitial or the Leydig cell is going to secrete testosterone. Testosterone is our primary male sex hormone. So testosterone is important in promoting spermatogenesis, but also maintaining and developing what we describe as secondary sex characteristics. So these are the differences that we see biologically between a biological male and a biological female. And so what we're seeing with the testosterone is we're going to get typically on average more height, more muscle mass. That distribution will be different. You'll get more hairiness. You'll get the development of thicker cartilage in the throat so that you're getting a deeper voice develop and so forth. What we can say here is we're going to see the testosterone helping to promote spermatogenesis. And let's just say secondary sex characteristics, which again is the biological way to talk about the differences that we see between biological males and biological females. These cells are actually housed in the seminiferous tubule. So let me make a comment here that they're all located inside the seminiferous tubules. Okay, so up next, we're going to spend a little bit more time looking at that process of spermatogenesis. So stay tuned. And as always, take care of yourselves and each other.